ทรมานเขานิดหนึ่งให้เขาพูดต่อเลยนะฮะหรือที่ประเทศอื่นเนี่ยจะสลับคนอื่นมาพูดก่อนแต่ว่าผมคิดว่าน่าจะต่อเนื่องไปเลยเขาจะได้เผื่อมีคำถามอะไรที่ค้างจากคราวที่แล้วเนี่ยจะได้คุยต่อเนื่องได้นะครับก็ทางดร.เลนเขาก็จะพูดในเรื่องของ sustainability ก็เอาผมว่าให้แกคุยเลยแล้วกันนะครับโอเค
All right.
Thank you.
So is this microphone just for the, okay. Just wondering if I was supposed to be hearing it through the speakers or not. So again, I want to talk a little bit about feed management, but also sustainability. To me, this is very pretty. I'm from the desert, so this is Arizona, and Mexico is a lot of desert like this. But this is a very large shrimp farm in Mexico. This is also in Mexico, so it's the same. You know, I work across a number of different countries. I work across a number of different technologies. A lot of the examples that I'll show you are because I support my industry, so our densities are at our industry. But we work, you know, with groups that are doing these super intensive systems as well. So I think the things that I'll talk about apply across these different systems. And we've already talked about, you know, in terms of sustainability, so usually I do this talk independent. But to me, you know, aquaculture, we really should be promoting ourselves for a lot of different reasons. We are, you know, one of the more efficient producers of protein. Now, we're not, in terms of protein to protein conversion, we're not any better than poultry, okay? I put us, actually in my slides, I put us a little above poultry. But the reality is, I mean, I view us as equivalents. But where we, you know, can and we do exceed other terrestrial animal production systems is protein per unit of energy that we produce. And we're far more efficient because we're dealing with poikiothermic animals. So to me, you know, our use of protein and our conversion of energy was our main advantages. And then we also, in terms of animal production, we have a relatively low use of water, or we can have a very wasteful use of water, or we can have a relatively low use of water. And a lot of our crops, especially in the marine system, you're not competing with freshwater resource because you're in a marine system. So to me, those are advantages. And then we also have multi-trophic systems. These are all things that we can promote as advantages. But we also have, you know, things that are disadvantages. So, you know, from the conversion of a low-quality feed ingredient to a high-quality product, I think we do that very well. You know, in terms of production of carp, tilapia, shrimp. But our use of fish meal is to me the biggest issue. And jokingly, you know, you don't see a shrimp going out and eating a fish. That's our perception of what we need in our feed formulations. We created that. The shrimp did not create that. And so you've already heard me going on for an hour and a half about this, so you don't need any more. We've already talked about this, so I'm just going to go through it, but to me, sustainability is using these expandable ingredients. So if you want to say that poultry byproduct meal through expansion of poultry industry, that's expandable, so that's reasonable to do. But we need things that we can expand, and our marine ingredients we can't expand. So that's the reason I think we need to look at agricultural-based ingredients, and we've already talked about that. So I'm just going to skip through. And as I said, we've done lots of work. We've already shown this, so we're not going to talk about it. I meant to hide those. But, you know, I'll give you some other examples. And again, just going back to, as I said, I like, you know, this corn, soy-based, so I use a lot of examples of that because I think it balances things out. So this is an example of another product that's on the market. It's a high-protein distiller's grain soluble. So again, they're changing their processing. But we ran a low fish meal diet. So here's, you know, 6% fish meal. We're coming and replacing corn protein concentrate. So what we're doing is basically, this is a corn product, this is a corn product, so it's a much better direct comparison than taking fish meal and replacing it with something else. But of course, you guys want to see it compared to fish meal, so we can also take fish meal and do that comparison and do that replacement with fish meal. You know, to me, this first comparison is the better comparison because you don't change so many things nutritionally. This, you change a lot of different stuff. But if you run those through, and we've done aquarium trials, outdoor tank trials, again, you know, you see very good feed conversions. You get plenty of weight gain, survivals, you know, good size differences in terms of growth and whatnot, and then there's no real differences. Again, we can take the fish meal out and use a lot of different ingredients as replacements. This is just another example. And just showing that data across, corn protein concentrate versus distillers, high protein distillers grains versus this. So again, these are, basically low fish meal diets. Lots of different ways to skin that cat. Everybody says you can't use, soy-based diets or low fish meal diets in high density systems. So just to, point that out. We've done, this is a soy-based diet, so there's 50-some%. We ran it against different densities, and yeah, as you increase density, this is pond data, you're going to change your growth rates, but you get very good performance. If you do this in outdoor tanks, so we went in this case up to 65 shrimp per meter, our growth is fine. But you do, as you increase density, you decrease growth rates. That's accepted. Now, from a nutritional standpoint, there's some things you can do to try and bring that back. And a lot of people say, well, I'm running at high density, therefore I need more animal protein or no fish meal. So we've started to move to some examples of higher density systems. We've just started doing this. As I said, I work with a lot of producers that are at higher densities. This is not as high as you run here in Asia, but for a lab study, it's pretty good density. So we ran at 120 per meter. Again, looking at your argument that fish meal, bringing it down to 0. Again, using soy-based diet, so these are both soy proteins, and then some corn protein concentrate there. I'm bringing that down. So this is outdoor tank experiment, and in terms of weight gain, we get fine weight gain, get fine survivals. A little bit difference in terms of feed conversions, but again, going from 0 fish meal all the way to a high fish meal diet at 125 per meter, which is pretty good density in outdoor systems, we can demonstrate that. So to me, there are differences as you go to high density, don't get me wrong, but I think that the same things that we do at lower densities are very much applicable to these high density systems. Other things that people are interested in, and as I said, this is again another example. We can't expand fisheries, but through aquaculture we produce byproducts. So we have a lot of byproducts from processing that are now being marketed as fish meal. So you have, for example, in the tuna industry, which is a wild fishery, you can have tuna byproduct meal going as a quote-unquote fish meal. Well, salmon industry produces a lot of byproduct. The catfish industry produces a lot of byproduct. If you're producing a fillet, you have byproducts you produce. And so we've started looking at them because, again, if you want fish meal, at least this is more sustainable. I mean, you can argue that this is not from the wild. You can make those arguments. So we've looked at some of these in the lab just as replacements. I mean, essentially they're fish meal being replaced for fish meal. So protein digestibility, energy digestibility for menhaden fish meal, anchovy meal, salmon meal. And then this is a hydrolyzed salmon meal. So these are both byproducts from the salmon industry as examples, and they have good digestibilities, good energy digestibilities or protein digestibilities. Now, of course, the hydrolyzed meal is going to show is higher. So we've done replacements where, again, taking a high anchovy meal-based diet, replacing it with salmon meal. Now, this level of hydrolysate is not what I would recommend, but what we wanted to do is look at the hydrolysate as a protein source. This is too high a level in reality. But you can see going from 20%, straight replacement, you get no differences across, that replacement right here, or even maybe a little bit benefit. But when you go to those high levels of hydrolysates, you do have problems. And this is just because we're using a water-soluble, low molecular weight protein as a protein source. And you can't do it at these high levels, okay? The big disadvantage of hydrolysates is there is an upper limit. It's around 5%. And so you can only use them as attractants, as sources of dipeptides and things like that, but you're not going to use them as protein sources. And that's what we were trying to demonstrate to these guys, that it can't be used as a protein source. So that makes sense. So again, there's lots of these byproducts out there, and they are good things. One of the things that I like about the hydrolysates, they're also acidifying things, and so part of their advantage is that. And if you need something, if you're looking for the dipeptides or something, or possibly as a potential attractant, I think they're reasonable to have in there. But there's limits. 5% is that limit. So as I said, we work a lot with sustainable feeds, and I can give you the best quality feed in the world, but if you don't apply it properly, it's completely wasted, right? and I don't know what the best way to apply feed is. Maybe using a bottle is the best way, I don't know. But we do a lot of work at looking at feed management. And to me, the biggest issue with most commercial farms is they don't spend a lot of time looking at feed management. In Asia, you have a tendency to be very good feed managers. That's a very good compliment to Asia. Latin America, I hate to say it, they tend to be very poor feed managers. So you guys are doing a good job at that. But I spend a lot of my time trying to evaluate and question what are we doing and can we improve it, okay? Because this is a big part of our cost, and if we don't apply it properly, we don't get the best results. And so I do a lot of talking in terms of feed management and choices. And there's no right answers. There's lots of different ways to do this. You know, feed trays are very popular. Some people have used feed trays as 100% of the ration. Some people use feed trays as a monitoring tool. Or you can do broadcast spreading. There's lots of different ways to do feed management. But there's key things in terms of when you deal with feed management. One of the big issues with shrimp is that as you leave feed in the water, performance is going to go down, okay? And so there's not a whole lot of data. As far as I know, we're the only ones who've done this. We took a commercial feed and we put it in the water, and then we took it back out of the water, we dried it, we quantified it, and then we used it as a feed, okay? You know, we thought about doing this for a long time, and it was like, well, I don't want to leach it for so amount of time. And finally, we decided, well, we'll just leach it. So we took a whole bunch of feed, leached it for different time intervals, then we re-dried it, and then we used that as our food source. And, you know, within, you know, less than 60 minutes, there's good performance. But as soon as, you know, we got to 60 minutes of leaching time on down, we had a decrease in performance. And we talk about this all the time, and it's a, you know, I complain to the shrimp industry that they want 24-hour stability, right? You want to see your feed 24 hours down the road. Well, that's a good management tool, but it's worthless in terms of a food source, okay? And I apologize for my examples, but if you guys eat cereal, right? You make cereal in the morning. You put your milk on your cereal and you eat it right away. You don't let it sit there for an hour and then come back to it, and I say it's a soggy cereal effect. You're not going to eat it. Well, the shrimp probably doesn't like it any better. And so this concept that we've promoted of having feed in the water for extended periods of time, to me, is a very bad thing, that we need to get away from that. Number one, you know, we've got data that shows that the performance is not going there. And you know, so if you look at all these ways of different feed management, you know, there's no right answer. To me, record keeping is critical. That you got to have good numbers. A lot of times our farmers, you know, basically lie to themselves. You know, the hatchery will sell you 1 million PLs. Well, it's 1 million plus 10% or 20%. What number did you use when you calculated your survival? Did you actually calculate how many animals you put in the pond, or did you take 1 million as the number? It might be 1 million and, you know, 100,000. You know, so having quality records and looking at those records to me is very, very important. And all the guys that are good feed managers, there is no one method that works. If you talk to them, they use multiple methods. They might use feed trays. They use, you know, feed curves. They use lots of different things to make that decision. The problem I have is that all of these things that we've been doing are post-responsive. Okay, they're after the fact. And so the best way that I can describe that is, if you're going to go, guy dies, then he goes to the doctor. It doesn't make sense, right? He's dead. Why is he going to the doctor? You know, you want real-time management. When you're sick, you want to go to the doctor, all right? You want to diagnose what's going on in real time.